and good evening, everyone. We'll convene the November 16th meeting for MCE Board of Directors. The time is 7:06 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Belvedere. Benicia.
Here.
Concord.
Here.
Contra Costa County. Puerto Madera.
Here.
Danville.
Here.
El Cerrito.
Here.
Fairfax. Fairfield. Lafayette.
Here.
Larkspur. Marin County. Larkspur. Director Paulson was here. There he is. Marin County. Martinez.
Present.
Mill Valley.
Here.
Moraga.
Here.
City of Napa.
Here.
Napa County and 4 Napa cities.
Here.
Novato.
Here.
Oakley.
Here.
Pinole. Pittsburgh.
Present.
Pleasant Hill.
Here.
Richmond.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
San Anselmo.
Here.
San Pablo.
Here.
San Rafael. San Ramon.
Here.
Sausalito. Solano County.
Yes.
Tiburon. Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
Here.
Darlene, I don't know if you missed me. My internet went down. Larkspur.
Yes, I got you. Thank you. Quorum established.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, moving on to board announcements. Are there any board announcements from our directors? All right. Moving on to item number 3, public open time. Are there any public comments from the public in San Rafael?
There are no public members in San Rafael, Chair.
All right. Are there any, do you have anyone in the room besides directors? Members of the public in the room?
No.
All right. Are there any public comments from members of the public via Zoom?
There are none, Chair.
All right. And we have no members of the public here in Concord. All right. Moving on to item number 4, our CEO report. I'll turn it over to you, Dawn.
Thank you so much. I wanted to let folks know that we have a new member of the MCE team, Michael Denovan, who is an Oakland resident. He just joined us as a customer programs manager, and he'll be working on energy efficiency for small businesses, including launching our new commercial equity program. And I see him up on the screen. Feel free to say hello, Michael.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Dawn.
Thanks for joining. And next, I wanted to let folks know that I had the pleasure of joining the MCE Human Resources team a couple of weeks ago to receive the Diversity in Business Award from the North Bay Business Journal. And this was really exciting. I just wanted to do a shout out to our HR team for doing a great job of helping us get this award. I think we're doing a lot of great stuff, and it's exciting to see that. And then some kudos for MCE and the board. I'm sorry, was someone asking a question? Okay. MCE was just included in the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL's, annual top 10 list. This is a nationwide list looking at outstanding utility green pricing programs. MCE ranked number 3 in the country. So really exciting. It just shows the amazing leadership of the board. And for those of you that aren't familiar with NREL yet, it's the U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratory that focuses on research and development of renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies. We ranked 3rd in the nation for our green power sales, and we also ranked number 4 in the nation for the highest number of CCA green power customers. So really exciting recognition there. Wanted to make sure y'all knew about it. Also on the energy storage front, I wanted to let folks know that we have now served 527 residential customers with our solar storage credit program. This is our special rate for folks that have storage in their home. It provides a $10 to $20 a month incentive for allowing us to utilize that battery sometimes for arbitrage on the grid, but giving the customer the freedom to override us if they need to. We typically do the battery discharge between 4 and 9 p.m. in the evenings when the solar is starting to go down, the need for capacity is starting to go up. So it helps really deepen our impact on the GHG front while incentivizing folks to get batteries. So if you know someone with a battery, if you've got a battery and you're not on that rate yet, spread the word. We're excited to have hit the 500 customer mark. We're hoping to increase that. We've also installed 1.6 megawatt hours of storage at 70 homes and 9 critical facilities, including fire stations, community centers, and medical clinics. This includes the Rise Center in Richmond, the Stinson Beach Firehouse and Community Center, the West Marin Medical Center, Victory Village, a senior affordable housing program in Fairfax. A couple of these are hung up getting interconnected. So just a heads up, we've been talking about that kind of ad nauseum over the last 6 months. The interconnection queue is a bit arduous and long, but we're excited that these, some of them are interconnected and a few are close. Oh, and I didn't mention the Bolinas Community Center. That's another one that received support from us for battery storage. And we have a couple more in the pipeline. The San Francisco Food Bank, I'm sorry, the SF Marin Food Bank, 10 schools in the Pittsburgh Unified School District, the Marin Community Clinics, we'll also be getting batteries as critical facilities, and we'll be adding more with $500,000 we just received in federal earmark funding. So really exciting to see the progress on that. And then I wanted to follow up on a request from our prior board meeting regarding a budget update. I wanted to let folks know that we'll be providing a mid-fiscal year budget update at our executive and technical committee meetings. And then we will be doing a full board update in the new year after we've had a bit more time to see results. We do have about a 3-month lag on results, but we're going to give a snapshot at the committee meetings that are coming up in a couple of weeks. And then lastly, I wanted to thank folks that have been in touch with our legislative staff. We have Stephanie Chen and Lillian Mirvas, I combined her name there, Lillian Mirvas, who are reaching out to board members to find out if you have legislative contacts and to help us get a sense of who we should be keeping updated, who we should reach out to, and certain issues are coming up at the state level or even at the federal level. So if you haven't talked to them yet, keep an ear out for an inquiry. And if you have, thank you. They're super grateful. It's been really helpful already, really productive. And then just a couple of reminders, we have our holiday party coming up on December 8th. We may, because of all the business we're conducting tonight, we may be able to skip our December board meeting, which I know folks would like because it's falling, I think, on the 22nd. No promises, but fingers crossed that we'll be able to bypass that meeting. But we want you to all come to the holiday party on December 8th. It's going to be close to us here in Concord at the Willow Pass Community Center. If you haven't RSVP'd, tomorrow is the deadline. Please RSVP. Bring a +1. We want to meet everyone and get to spend some time connecting outside of a meeting. So hope you all can make it. And that's it for my report. Any questions?
Well, I guess your report was so good, Don. There was no questions at all. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item. And that is the consent calendar, item number 5. Would any board members like to remove any items from the consent calendar? All right, seeing or hearing none, do I have a motion to move the consent calendar?
Director in, move to approve.
Motion made by Matt,
Second, Corder Madera.
did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I did.
Okay.
Belvedere. Benicia.
Yes.
Concord.
Yes.
Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
Yes.
Danville.
Yes.
El Cerrito.
Yes.
Fairfax. Fairfield. Lafayette.
Yes.
Larkspur.
Yes.
County of Marin. Martinez.
Yes.
Mill Valley.
Yes.
Moraga.
Aye.
City of Napa.
Yes.
Napa County and 4 Napa cities.
Yes.
Novato.
Yes.
Oakley.
Yes.
Pinole. Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Pleasant Hill.
Yes.
Richmond.
Aye.
Ross.
Yes.
San Anselmo.
Yes.
San Pablo.
Yes.
San Rafael. San Ramon.
Yes.
Sausalito.
Yes.
Solano County.
Yes.
Tiburon. Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries, Chair.
Thank you. Our next item is item number 6. It's a guest presentation from Wellhead Power Exchange, LLC. This item will be introduced by Victon.
Well, hi, everybody. Good evening to the board. Really, this is really exciting. It's been a little over 4 years that we first brought this subject matter of this hybrid power plant with Wellhead for the board's consideration, and we had a really dynamic discussion a little bit over 4 years ago. And at that time, we promised about deliverables on reduced nitric oxide and sulfur oxide and less water usage in this plant operation. And I'm really pleased to share that we will have a wonderful presentation by Grant and Hal. We have a good agency relationship with each other. So I just really exciting, just pass it on to Grant or Hal. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Vic. And it's a real privilege to be here, first of all. To do this project for MCE was a real opportunity for us. So just by way of review, Wellhead is not an oil and gas company. We are actually the oldest California-based independent power producer in the state. And Hal's first project, he started the company in 1984. Well, first project was in 1984. He and his wife did. They were going out to the wellheads, if you will, all right, natural gas fields here in California, and they were collecting the waste gas, the low BTU, and they're running it through IC engines and converting that to power. Always been a very very innovative electrical company. The next projects he did was actually in cogeneration, but he didn't just do the standard flavor of cogeneration. He did dispatchable cogeneration, so it was only burning gas when it was actually economic and the grid needed it. And so one of those plants in Yuba City is still supporting the Yuba, the SunSuite growers up there, but they're dispatchable. That plant only runs when it's necessary. So the actual gas that's burnt for that facility is as low as it can possibly be, but still provide their thermal needs. Did a lot of solar development for various parties. We just commissioned a 70 megawatt standalone storage facility in Orange County. We're very proud of that, along with the 98 megawatt hybrid facility that's in Orange County as well. So kind of bring us full circle here. Oh, one more thing. The site that we did this hybrid modification to, Hal just loves to play with things. So he set aside land to, it's like an R&D facility. We call it our skunk works. But what we want to do is we invite kind of startups in, so that, and because we have a grid connection, they can come in and actually do a scaled project and have the ability to show off their technology, actually prove it out, but to do it at scale. And so that's something that we're going to continue to try to incubate and grow here in California. This particular project, if you've got the slide decks. So here's just a picture of the energy storage that was added to the facility. One of our primary goals, I went back and I looked at the board presentation from 2019, was we said, we're projecting we're going to be able to decrease GHG 60%. I tell you right now, we beat that by a long shot. So go ahead and roll into the next slide. What are we doing when we hybridize something? It's much like having a hybrid car, a plug-in hybrid car. We have added energy storage. And in this case, we started out with an existing 50 megawatt turbine. And what we wound up doing is we put in a battery size that was 16 megawatts, 16 megawatt hour. So it's fairly significant in its size. It's 30% of the power that the gas turbine had to begin with. And that allows us to be able to do most of the work when necessary by the energy storage, and only to use the gas if we need to, because there's a disturbance on the grid. There's something that's going to, cause us to have to run for a much longer period of time. And that was really the key here, was to give MCE resource adequacy, round the clock resource adequacy, even under slice a day, that is low GHG, that's low emitting, rather than, your standard peaking plants. Next slide. We don't just bring in batteries and integrate them. I don't know about everybody in this group, but I know myself. If I go back to driving cars in the 80s or the 70s, they were kind of clunkers, right? You just start them and you just kind of have to, there's no way you could come to a stop sign, stop that car and expect it was going to go, right? It just didn't happen. They just weren't that reliable. They weren't flexible. We have been working over the years with what we've done at Wellhead to chase what we call perfect flexibility with the turbines, which is to make them very reliable, to make them extremely fast starting, to have absolute control over the entire operating range, but be in emissions compliance, so that we can burn as little as gas as possible. And so we modified the gas turbine, we modified the control system, and we modified the emissions reduction system, so that we can run all the way down to a zero net and be in emissions compliance if necessary. That allows us to burn the minimum amount of gas that the ISO is requiring the facility to put out. Then and only then can we actually integrate this 16 megawatt battery. Integrating that battery, now we have a true plug-in vehicle, if you will, plug-in hybrid car. Now we have a true plug-in hybrid power plant. Right, next slide. I love this slide because we often don't realize just how imperfect or inflexible our fast start peakers are that serve the state. and give us resource adequacy. The top slide is a standard peaker. It's one of ours, by the way. It's not hybridized. And the bottom one is a hybrid. They were both commanded to do by the ISO to follow the orange line in the middle, which was a 5-minute price signal. And the peaker at the top responded quite well. It did what it could do, but it had other constraints. First of all, it can't just turn off. And it has to stay on for a certain period of time to get through certain sequences, certain emissions, to get in emissions compliance before it can shut down. And the ISO, it has to know, if I turn off this peaker, when can I have it back? Because if I have a disturbance on the grid and I turn it off and I have another disturbance, it's not there. So oftentimes we found ourselves having to call the ISO after hours of running at what we call our minimum load. The ISO, and I say, hey, can we shut this off yet? And they'll say, not yet. We're still waiting for the uncertainty to go away. That doesn't happen with the hybrid. Bottom graph, as soon as that event is over, it's off. Why? Because that hybrid can come right back immediately, right back. And that is really how we achieve the savings that we're going to achieve. Next slide. And kind of, one more thing. There is direct gas savings, and then there is indirect gas savings. And by indirect gas savings, we first have to look at what is the ISO's job. Their job is to dispatch enough megawatts for energy, but also to have reserves in case there is a disturbance on the grid. Where do they get those reserves? They get it from units that are already operating, units that are already economic. And what they do with that is they turn those down so that if something happens, they can turn them up real fast. The problem is when you do that, that means to meet the extra energy, I have to turn something less efficient on to meet it, because the equation is all of my energy needs plus all of my reserve needs. Here's the beauty of the hybrid. The hybrid can provide those reserves without burning any gas. So I no longer need to turn down those more efficient units. The batteries, the energy storage standalone doesn't have to be turned down. It can do its energy shifting, right? Even the CCGTs, if that's where we're getting them overnight, they can stay at their maximum, their most efficient use. That way we burn the least amount of gas. And that being not having to dispatch that extra gas is where we see a tremendous amount of secondary GHG savings. So you're going to see here in a moment, I'll give you the numbers here, but there's both the direct savings, which are significant, and then there's the indirect, which are almost blow you away numbers. So, well, from our perspective, we're a single 50 megawatt plant. Our estimation on the secondary, the impact to the system was just the 6 months from, and I'm sorry, my numbers are just for 6 months because I was going to come last month, from April through September was 1,200 metric tons of GHG that were displaced secondary, just by its redispatch. And that's a conservative number. But we can always, if you like, we can show you how we calculated those, but very conservative. Next slide. So direct numbers. So what we did is we looked back at 2022, the same time frame, April through September through 2023. I actually have two tables here. One, the top one is all operations, which includes what the ISO asked us to be dispatched at, as well as testing. And the reason that I included that top one is because we did a lot of testing. It required a lot of testing at this facility. But you can see that our reductions in starts, 81%, in our operating hours, 95%, energy dispatch, 96%, gas use, 95%, CO, 85%, the NOx was 85, I'm sorry, PM10, 95%, water usage, 95%, and GHG, 95%. The bottom chart is we just stripped out and said, if we had done no testing at all, market dispatch to market dispatch, because this is more reflective of what we would see now going forward. And again, you can see the dispatch starts 55%, the hours 83%. The rest of the numbers here are basically in the 90s, including my GHG in 91%, except for one, NOx. This is interesting because NOx, the reason it's not is that when I reduce my starts, I reduce the number of operating hours I have, then I'm operating very little, but most of the startup NOx is produced when you first start up. Most of the NOx, rather, when you first start up. There's an uncontrolled emissions. Fortunately, just let you know, because we are an innovative company, we do have a patented technology now that we have developed to reduce, if not eliminate, the uncontrolled startup NOx. It was not deployed at this time. Forgive me on that one, but we will get it deployed, I hope, before the end of the year to get this technology on this plant so that NOx will also be up in the high 90s as far as its reduction. I love the bottom line on this one. The GHG from the market dispatch, 754.2 metric tons, 2022 to 66.4 metric tons in the 6-month period. Taken together, all right, we did actually produce some GHG. It's not directly negative, but 66.4 metric tons. But when I look at its impact overall to the grid, which was that I displaced an additional 1,200 metric tons, it's actually GHG negative, the impact to the grid. And that comes from, in this case, 2,800 hours just in 6 months of providing that spinning reserve and displacing other units that would otherwise be running. I can open up to questions, including what kind of the future plans and thinking are. Is one of the things that we did was that when we laid out these batteries, we tried to lay it out in such a way that the batteries can grow. Right there, it's laid out so that we can keep on stacking these and get them to be larger and larger so that the batteries can continue to do more and more of the work, let the gas do less and less over time. We have the ability to have this facility next fall to perhaps be dispatched as a non-generator, which in our lingo just means that they dispatch it like a battery, both negative range and positive range. To actually firm the grid for renewables. We think that is a tremendous use of this type of equipment because we think overall it will have a bigger GHG impact than even the spinning reserves. And then, of course, the future, and we do have room out there, is that the turbine itself can burn hydrogen. It's really a matter of storage and how much we can have on site. If we continue to just use this for spinning reserves, we may not need to store a lot. Each one is only 30 minutes, and you could always use gas if you had to in the backup. But that is nothing that we've decided, other than we believe this facility future has a tremendous opportunity to test out new technologies and to continue to prove, or keep the grid to be stable, resilient, but also greener. And that's our goal. Questions?
Really thank MC for being our. We really are grateful to MCE for being our customer on this. GE said that Wellhead's a very unique company and that they said to me, you let your guys play with the power plants. Nobody else does that. And this is the chief playman right here. Very, very innovative guy. But you can't do that just as a charitable event. So your contract made all the difference in the world. So give yourself credit for helping with innovation. This is a really remarkable thing. That's what's happened here. And, you think about it, we're all for all gas should go away someday. I think that's a good idea. We're not quite there yet, but let's hybridize it so it runs as little as possible. That's a noble thing. And so that's kind of our mission. And this is a great showcase example. And we thank you for making it possible.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. There are now 250 megawatts of hybrids running in California and Canada. So that GHG reduction from this plant is, or is much larger on that contribution. And again, thank you for supporting this type of technology work. We do appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Director Darling?
So I'm just curious, it sounds like you're looking at turning it into a more, or beginning to use it as a battery storage. Can you guys import power off the grid now if your turbines aren't spinning? Can you charge off the grid?
The batteries are perfectly capable. We do need to make a modification to our generator interconnection agreement, which is all we need to do. And at that point in time, we can. We have worked with the CAISO. They will allow it. And that's kind of where we think we're headed with this.
So if you ended up building another facility, co-locating, or well, you wouldn't have to co-locate with, but you could end up getting a similar, making it even greener.
Yes.
But still getting the resource adequacy.
We think that with the current system that's in place, I don't know how familiar the board is with the imbalance reserve product that the CAISO is coming out with in 2024, but starting around 2018, 2019, as renewable penetration really got deep on the CAISO, it caused a lot of operational difficulties for the ISO, a lot. So much so that the uncertainty was they were driving on the edge. They just couldn't keep it firm. So they've been biasing the load forecast for a number of years now, and they've been open about it, and they have very good reports on it. But from a economic and environmental point of view, it's an awful thing to do, because what you're doing when you do that is you're saying, I don't have 20,000 megawatts in this hour. I'm going to forecast 25. It dispatches 25, and then it turns those 5,000 megawatts down. Those 5,000 megawatts are gas that they don't need, but they're turning them down to PMIN so that they can come up and be flexible, and then the uncertainty is covered. But it keeps the lights on in California. In fall of 2024, they have an imbalance reserve product, which is meant to procure that capability in a day-ahead market. We believe that the hybrid plant, with the battery size that we have, perhaps a little bigger, would be able to cover that uncertainty and run the gas only in the extreme uncertain events that happen. But right now, the uncertainty average in California is 4,000 megawatts an hour. It's huge.
And so you're getting the benefit you're really generating is that you can turn your plant on like that. You don't have to have it operating at a low level.
Yes. And if we were operating to firm the grid, it would be the battery doing all of the work unless that one extreme event hit. And then
you could turn
it would just be like you have your hybrid car, you stepped on it on the freeway and the gas took off.
Thanks. Interesting.
Director Paulson?
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to understand the hybrid industry a little better. So you're partnering with General Electric, and I think, doesn't NASA also work on this technology? I'm curious about how the intellectual property and some of the technologies are shared, and how they're evolving, and keeping cost and competition in place.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we did co-develop this product with GE. We had a partnership agreement that has already ended. The IP is 100% owned by Wellhead. The IP is also 100% owned by GE for the portion that we work together on. We have continued to develop the product. GE has not, because GE's just been having some struggles. We'll leave it at that. But we continue to sell the product ourselves worldwide. We've partnered with some other folks to help us to try to continue to advance that. But Wellhead has all of the intellectual property rights to it, as well as the intellectual property rights to to reducing the startup NOx emissions.
Right, and just one follow-up question. If we carry the analogy to a hybrid further, if a car gets 30 miles per gallon, a hybrid gets 35. What kind of benchmark comparison could I take to a constituent to explain the efficiencies here?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I have pondered a way to put that into simple terms, but unfortunately the way the grid dispatches us and the case of for having operating reserves or imbalance reserves or providing energy is not consistent enough to provide that one metric. But we're happy to come back and give you, more detailed information that can help you to understand that better. But I totally understand your question. I wish I had a clear-cut, easy answer.
But I just so I know what you might be bringing back. Obviously, greenhouse gas reduction on some normal scenario, and the other would be, just a general reduction in the fuel use of the turbines. I mean, it has to be comparable to like a car if we're using this metaphor.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Director Quinta?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question regarding the nitric oxide, and it's great to see the stats that you presented that it will be 42% lower. Are you looking at, or are you working on more research and development to get that much lower than it is? I think 42% is great, but can it get lower?
Yes, I can. And let me repeat this. The only reason that one is at 40% is because we did not deploy our technology for the startup NOx reduction emission during this period, and that's an oversight on my fault. I should have made sure it got deployed. It did not. We're pushing it now, and I hope to have it deployed before the end of the year. In the hybrid facility we have in Orange County, there are 2 units. It's 98 megawatts total. The 2 units combined produce less NOx than any other gas turbine peaking facility in California, and that's 2 units. So it will go down significantly. What we have seen where we've deployed this is that we're right on the edge of being in compliance from the minute we fire the turbine off. That means there's no, there isn't any out of compliance NOx that's being produced, right? It's all under control. We're going to continue to work on that to try to make that 100%, but it is a significant reduction.
Most of the
I think
time,
that's good.
when any gas.
Thank you very much.
Most of the time, just to emphasize what Grant said, when a gas turbine starts up, until the catalyst is fully heated up and the system, the emissions reduction system really kicks in, the emissions are very high for a few minutes, often 15 minutes. Well, Grant's got a technology that we should be able to deploy here pretty soon, where it's in compliance and you don't have that startup spike from time 0, which is the goal. And that should be possible. We're pretty sure that's going to work.
So,
Director
sorry.
Darlene?
So it's fascinating. So it sounds like a industry practice is you get the big spike and then you operate low, and you have to keep operating low because you want to average it below a certain level. Is that?
That's how the numbers wind up. When you look at saying, that overall, what is someone's average NOx over time? It's because they're running longer, right? When
do
you
they
run a very
longer
little
to
bit,
make
it could
it?
be higher.
Do
Pardon?
they run longer to make it come in from a regulatory perspective?
It depends upon the plant as whether or not they have to. No one does that on purpose.
I know, but
from a what type of technology did they put in the first place? Some people have to run 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in order to come into compliance. And, our goal was to just eliminate that.
that's good.
Director Zorn?
Thank you. I had 2 questions. Can you elaborate on what you said the indirect reduction of GHG emissions? I didn't fully understand. You were commenting that was going in the negative. Can you elaborate a little bit, clarify?
Sure, because the indirect is just what is our impact on everything else that's running. And by having the hybrid provide your operating reserves, I can shut 3 or 4 gas plants down, right? And so immediately that's a reduction in the GHG for the state, even though my facility is still putting, it had a direct reduction, but it's still putting out a positive number. But if I look at the entire, what was its impact, it's actually negative.
And follow up on that, are we actually turning off the corresponding facilities to?
Yeah, we
get that
can
indirect?
tell that from the data, which
Okay.
is why I say it's a very conservative number based upon what the heat rates are of the system. We can tell which plants are on, so we know who we would be displacing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't on the board in 2019 when we had the first healthy discussion. So I just wanted to ask one quick question. I don't think I realized that we had any contracts with any companies that were burning gas at all. So this is a very interesting conversation. So I guess I just have a question for Dawn. Is Wellhead considered a deep green company? Or if you understand the question, maybe
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, great question. So our generators don't get assigned a product, deep green or light green. The light green is really the retail compilation of energy that we buy from the market. So this project would not be part of our deep green portfolio. This project is part of our RA portfolio, our resource adequacy portfolio. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about RA over the last couple of years. Let me put it this way. So when we buy resource adequacy, we pay for it, but then we hand it directly over to CAISO, and we have no control over it after that. We don't know if it gets used, burned. We don't have metrics on when or if it's ever used. We're basically paying for CAISO to use it. But most of it is gas, and we are paying for that. And so I do think that in 2019, when we had this board discussion, given that we are a company, an agency founded on greenhouse gas reductions, focused on getting as much renewables onto the grid as possible, for our board to contemplate a contract with a natural gas provider, I would say was very innovative, unusual, brave, maybe, practical. I think pragmatic maybe is the best word, because the board was looking for ways to find green RA. We had done a solicitation in 2018 looking for green RA. And what was bid into us was mostly not all that green. We were hoping for some green hydrogen. We were hoping for some technologies that would allow us to meet CAISO's requirements. But CAISO's requirements are pretty stringently focused on something that can be quickly dispatched. And certainly solar and wind aren't considered reliable, so their RA value is very small. So this was I think, a very forward-thinking contract for the board to contemplate and enter into. And we didn't see other CCAs going down this path. And I think that it's really rewarding and exciting to hear the report today of what has been accomplished. Because at that time it was more about what's expected to be accomplished. It wasn't any clear results. So it's really exciting to see the real results, and it's honestly surpassed what we were expecting in 2019. We hadn't contemplated the idea of the plant being used for direct dispatch on and off the grid. And it's really exciting to see that development. But we're really grateful that we had a partner in the industry that was willing to be innovative alongside us. And yeah, I think it's a great example of how our board is very forward thinking.
Thank you for that clarification. And I just want to acknowledge, I think it's great too, because people like us are always at the dais talking about cleaner, greener, and you just reported out that you are cleaner and greener, and you're going to get cleaner and greener moving forward because you haven't even rolled out some of your plans. So I think that this is, I'm really pleased with this report. So thanks.
We're going to move over to San Rafael. Director Martinez.
Yes, I understand the hybrid model, but I was more interested in a more granular understanding. And I was looking at slide 4, where you have the perfect flexibility valve example. And when I guess the turbines don't have variable speeds, they just have one speed, and you just shut some off when you need less. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a number of constraints that the current turbines have in generating power. The biggest one they have is emissions. And when they were initially designed, they were designed to do peaking. They needed to come on to fill in a 2-3 hour gap, go to full load, get there, fill it in, and then shut down. And that's what they were designed to do. But the world changed on them. And when we brought in renewables and you started to use these same peaking plants to now try to firm load, you didn't want them always to go to full load. You wanted them to go part load. And the problem was no one had really focused on modifying the emissions reduction system so that you could go to that part load, and how low could you go? And how quickly could I get in emissions compliance? And how quickly can I get off the grid and be ready to go again if you do want me off completely? And so that's again the biggest constraint was the emissions reduction system. There were other constraints that have to do with the way the turbines were programmed in sequence to start and to stop. There were constraints that we had to take away in the actual control of the turbine and in some of the valves that they used. But all of this was just an engineering exercise. It was taking somebody who had had the experience with understanding how you can make these flexible, to say, we know how to do this. We actually go back to around 2012 that we first hit a full emissions turn down. There was no reason to, other than we were decided to see what we could do. Curious, because we thought we could achieve it. And we did a very robust study. We're able to get 100% turn down on the emissions to get that 0 megawatt out. And we also understood what was going on inside the turbine, so we knew what we had to change from a control system point of view, and different valves, different control techniques, so that if we wanted to be super flexible like your current hybrid cars, we could now do that. And that's part of our DNA and how we arrived at being able to have this technology and the IP.
Just a little side story on that. Oh, sorry. A little side story on that. So the original turbine control system valve was kind of a stair step. So every time you'd turn the power up, internal to that gas turbine would kind of go boom. And every time that would happen. Well, that's not very friendly to a piece of rotating equipment. So you want a nice smooth ramp. Well, Grant and a couple of other people figured that out. That was an example of what you had to do to get this all to work right. And there's 10 more examples of that. And what's really cool about this is when you think about right now, there's nothing else that's going to keep the lights on other than gas. That's a dirty truth. But let's run it as little as possible. And this technology is really key to that. And, I think that says enough. A battery and a gas turbine together is a dramatically more powerful and green machine that each of them operating separately.
So according to this graph, the turbines turn off at a particular time, or do some of them continue?
Yeah, some of them continue. And this is, we have a white paper on this, and I'm going to expand on it because it's not well advertised as to how often the CAISO has to continue to run gas plants at their current PMINs because of uncertainty, because they do have a turnaround time. A standard gas turbine, if you turn it off, it's got to go through a shutdown sequence, a cool down sequence before it can be ready to come back into its start sequence. That whole time, what we call a turnaround time, can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So if the ISO releases it from operation, they can't have it back for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And so the algorithms that they look at from an uncertainty point of view have to say, it's all clear. We're good. We have more than enough to handle anything that hits us. Go ahead and shut that one down. And we have had some of our peaking plants stay on 6, 8, 10 hours because the CAISO was having trouble.
That turnaround.
It's unfathomable to think that that's the case, but it was. And we're trying to solve that by getting at that root problem, which was, let's solve for the inflexibility of the machine and give the CAISO something better to operate.
And that turnaround time is for a gas turbine, which is basically an airplane engine. But the 500 megawatt plants, which are the ones that are much more efficient for longer term runs for energy, their turnaround time is more like 2 hours. So they come down, usually they cool off, then they start up again. And that turnaround time is much longer. And that start and stop emissions is a really big deal. As is, its sweet spot of operation is generally 500 megawatts. When they turn them down, I believe the number is around 100 megawatts. Well, we got to turn a whole bunch of those down to have that ramping capability to make up this 2,000 to 4,000 megawatts that comes on as soon as a major solar field goes behind the cloud or the wind dies down. So I got a lot of stuff running there that wouldn't need to run with more hybrids.
So it sounds as if the batteries will lower the period of time of instability.
They do. And, you know, when as a grid operator, they have two choices: either dispatch more gas and turn it down, or if they have hybrids, they can say, well, look, I can sit here and operate on the battery because I know I have a certain amount of uncertainty I'm actually going to use in each 15-minute period. I'm going to use it. I know. But as I get out there into the larger uncertainties, the probabilities are there. You have to cover it. But why cover it with something that you know has to burn gas? You should cover it with something that can, as if it has to, but only if it has to. And that's really where, you know, where we believe the industry should head. There's a tremendous amount of gas that's being burnt today that doesn't have to be burnt. And for reliability's sake, and because it's just the tools that they have had to date, but we can change the tools that they've had to date.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you. We're excited.
Any further discussion on this item?
Just one item I would like to add. So thank you for the presentation, and really thank you, board, for all the questions. That's really important for us. A little over 4 years ago, when we were talking about this, just as an FYI, the example was like, you know, the mouth of the Amazon River is about 120 miles wide. And in our vision, we need to go to 0 GHG. Our request was, please give us some stepping stones to get to the other side, because if not, it's physics is impossible. So thank you again for all the question and understanding. I mean, this is a fundamental way for us to get to 100% GHG free. Eventually, we will get to generators with these type of testings. GE is doing a lot of work to go to green hydrogen, which requires basically 70% losses to generate it. With that comes a lot of costs, which goes to our customers, our rate base, right? and then solar production, solar generation, additional batteries. So we are looking at all of them because like we had talked about previously, we want to start actual doing like ownership type investments for our portfolio. The PPA world where you have heard several times, 300-400% cost increase or price increases and being played in this. It's not a market. It's not a structured market like several of you have been heard about on our RA deals. So again, I just want to emphasize, thank you again for being so interested in helping us cross this really wide river mouth to get us on the other side, because we have to be creative and invest where our future is. Thank you again.
Thank you, Vivian, for that. And thank you, Harold and Grant, for the great conversation and the presentation. All right, we're moving on to item number 7. A City of Hercules membership analysts and resolution approving Hercules as a member of MCE. This is an action item, and Jana, our manager of communication and community engagement, will be presenting this item.
Thank you so much, Chair. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jenna Tenney. I am MCE's Manager of Communications and Community Engagement. I have not been to a board meeting in a while, but I have been with the agency almost 8 years. So very happy to be here with everyone tonight. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the City of Hercules' request to join MCE as a member community. As a reminder, MCE opens an inclusion period on an annual basis, allowing that allows jurisdictions within Contra Costa County and Solano County who do not currently have MCE service to request MCE service. So this year, the City of Hercules engaged with MCE. We attended several council meetings and did complete all of the steps to formally request membership with MCE. That inclusion period allows us to have several communities join at one time, which makes things easier when doing our feasibility study and conducting an analysis for the type of electricity we need to buy if we do move forward and then have to buy electricity for these communities. So that's just a little primer on this item, and we can move to the next slide, which will be, there we go. Thank you. So the City of Hercules has a population of about 26,000. They would be the 16th Contra Costa jurisdiction to join MCE. They're the 16th to request MCE membership. Because of the timeline, they would be eligible for a 2025 enrollment. And I'll cover that a little bit here. So earlier this year, we launched this process with an informational meeting with Hercules staff, with our Senior Community Development Manager, Sebastian Kahn, who's here with me. We gave a presentation to City Council in March, and then in May, they passed the first reading of the ordinance to formally request membership. In June, they provided MCE with the ordinance and the second reading of the ordinance. So in November, early November, we brought this to MCE's executive committee of the board, first step in the process, and they did recommend moving it on to the full board for consideration and possible approval. At this meeting tonight, we are presenting a draft implementation plan, which we, if the board decides to move forward, will bring back to the executive committee for formal approval before it is submitted to the California Public Utilities Commission. At that point, the Public Utilities Commission will provide verification of if we are able to move forward with the City of Hercules in early spring of 2024. And then that makes the Hercules customers eligible for a 2025 enrollment, which we typically do in the spring. So that's just a quick overview of the timeline, what we've done so far. And then I believe Alden Walden from Pacific Energy Advisors is here with us, and he's going to go through our technical study that was conducted so we get a better sense of what including Hercules as an MCE member community would mean. So I'll pass it over to you, Alden.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Jenna. Good evening, directors. This is exciting for me. This is the first board meeting that I have had the opportunity to present at. This is the 5th phase of expansion that I've supported MCE on, so been around in the background for quite a bit. I'm excited to be here tonight. Darlene, are you running the slideshow? Okay, I wasn't sure if I had access or not. Perfect.
No, you don't want me running it.
No, okay. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to click something or not. So I'll just go from here. So we were asked to analyze the potential impacts of customer enrollments from Hercules into MCE's program. And in order to do that, we received historical consumption data and customer data from PG&E that spanned from 2021 through 2022. And we look through that data and basically create consumption patterns from what it looked like in the past and use that as an assumption for what it'll look like going forward. And then applied those consumption patterns to the most recent customer counts that were eligible for MCE service, which come from December of 2022. So there likely are going to be some minor changes prior to enrollment in 2025. However, these forecasts will be adjusted prior to that point in time, and as we're looking at the resource planning to bring these folks on board with MCE's service. So currently we're looking at just over 10,000 eligible accounts. A vast majority are residential. The potential enrollment of all these customers would get MCE close to the 600,000 account mark, just shy a little bit. So if we keep the economic growth and all that service cities, I think MCE is going to hit that pretty darn soon. It is about a 1.3% increase potential to MCE's total annual load. It's about 75,000 megawatt hours. And the average consumption for customers in Hercules overall is slightly lower than MCE's overall current average consumption per customer. And a big part of that is, we'll see on the next slide, if you don't mind, that Hercules does have a higher residential customer load distribution as opposed to non-residential than MCE's current customer base, so a little bit higher on the residential distribution there. So we can go into the next slide, please. Going in, we're looking for a few key items, I think, to get this to be appropriate to move forward with. Looking at the estimated incremental renewable energy procurement that will be done on behalf of these customers, the incremental GHG reductions that'll be done on behalf of these customers, and then also the financial impacts that will be realized with the inclusion of these customers, in addition to the current customer base and current operating bottom line. So we have assumed in April 2025 commencement or enrollment for Hercules customers, which is a little later than the earliest possible. Earliest possible would be January 2025, assuming that the implementation plan is submitted by the end of this year. However, the April enrollment does align with past expansions, and it aligns with the start of the new fiscal year. So we've kind of stayed true to that pattern for this analysis as well. We've assumed a 90% participation rate or a 10% opt-out rate, just looking back to some historical stats there as a basis. And 100% of those customers would be enrolled in light green for the sake of this analysis, due to the sort of overwhelming success of the deep green auto enrollment pilot that has been put to a halt, as I understand it, and there's a current wait list for that moving forward. So we've assumed for this that everyone will be enrolled in light green to start. All of the revenues, when we get to the financial impacts, are based on MCE's current rates as of right now. So there are no growth rates assumed on the rates, or the rates are assumed exactly where they're at currently. For the incremental cost, we're looking primarily at power supply, which is the majority of MCE's overall costs in general, and just a little bit extra tagged on there. But there will be other implementation and operational costs that'll be incurred with the enrollment of these customers and the ongoing support of these customers. As the service territory, we just took a big focus on the power supply for the sake of keeping it simple here going forward. If you don't mind going to the next, please. And so we're looking at the first full calendar year of support, which would be 2026, since enrollment is assumed for April of 2025, is aligning with MCE's current portfolio content. We'd see about 48,000 megawatt hours of renewable energy procured on behalf of the Hercules customers. And this is about 14,000 megawatts more than the statewide RPS mandate requires MCE to procure. So we are seeing the potential for a rapid increase in renewable energy on behalf of the customers relative to state mandates. This does step up over the course of the study period, which goes into 2028, where MCE currently has targets that step up from 60% to 80% across 2025 to 2028. So those renewable energy volumes that would be procured on behalf of these customers would be stepping up quite rapidly and increasing from about 15% over state mandates to about 25% over state mandates in that time period. And then with MCE's current procurement targets as well, the assumption would be that we would be targeting close to 100% GHG-free energy on behalf of the Hercules customers as well. And we go to the next one, please. All right, so a few items to note here as we get into it. There's a lot going on in this slide. So we have the revenues, as we discussed, are based on the current rates times the consumption of all of the Hercules customers at 90% enrollment. So that's a pretty flat and stable assumption at this point in time. The operating expenses, again, primarily on the power supply costs, have had certain sensitivities applied to current market conditions in order to give a potential and expected likely range of what we might see in the first few years of service, as MCE currently will not be procuring the energy and other products on behalf of the Hercules customers until a few months down the road, and expansion is certain there. And so with very dynamic markets, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like in a few months. As much as I wish that we did have certainty on that front, we don't quite. So there's been certain sensitivities applied to the power cost to give us an expected and likely range. And then the net operating margin, essentially just your revenue minus your expenses there to give sort of the outlook on what it could be. Now, the reason that we do have these sensitivities, which equate to about a 30% market shift, looking out into the future from current prices, is because we've experienced a massive amount of volatility over the last just year or 15 months in both the resource adequacy market. I think, Vicken had mentioned that slightly a little bit ago. In addition to the renewable energy prices, really, really massive step ups in the near-term pricing for both of those products across the board. For resource adequacy, we've seen a close to quadrupling of summer resource adequacy prices, which is when your requirements are at its highest. And then renewable energy prices, we've also seen about a quadrupling across the various products in total price since around the same time last year. And so what sort of caused these is really increased supply in the reference to the resource adequacy market. The state has increased requirements for all load serving entities year over year. And through various regulation changes, the supply on the marketplace has also dwindled. So when you increase supply and you increase demand and you decrease supply, then your price shoots up massively. A similar thing has happened for renewable energy, where we have a lot of load serving entities currently operating in California, namely CCAs, that have very aggressive green targets and plans for procuring renewable energy over the current state mandates. And that, again, is an increase to demand on the marketplace. We've also seen a bit of a shift in the expected supply in the marketplace, as we've had a lot of projects that have been delayed time and time again and continue to be delayed through operations getting to begin in the state, which is limiting supply, and we kind of have the same supply and demand metric there, increasing price. So it's been, I guess, overall a pretty crazy year for RA and for renewable energy prices, at least in the near term. And the state has, over the last few years, installed several incremental procurement mandates for all LSCs in the state to procure new generation that must come online over the next few years to combat the retirement of natural gas plants, the ever-increasing demand on the grid with electrification and whatnot. So ideally and hopefully what we'll see over the next few years is all of these thousands of megawatts of new generation come online. It should hopefully suppress market prices. Again, I don't have a crystal ball and I wish I did, but that would ideally be the condition as we start seeing this come on. So with the massive ramp up in pricing that we've seen for renewable energy and resource adequacy over the last year, we wanted to be able to account for any additional market shifts we might see over the next few years prior to Hercules enrolling, to give really a likely range of what we might see as the actual bottom line for how it impacts MCE going forward. I think one thing to note, though, is despite there being a decent sized range relative to the revenues for Hercules, a decent sized range in operating margin, this is really small change in comparison to MCE overall. It is only about a 1% increase to total load, and very, very small drop in the bucket when we're talking about the actual financial benefit or deficit here we're seeing. So I think with that, I will hand it back over to Jenna, but I would be happy to take questions or comments here at this point in time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Alden. We have just this one last slide, so I'll go ahead and wrap up quickly. So based on our analysis of the community, there is likely to be environmental benefits to providing more renewable energy to these customers. The fiscal impacts do have a range of likelihoods, but because the impact is likely to be so small, we think that it is feasible to move forward as well. So the recommendation here tonight is to approve the items listed here, to go ahead and move forward and approve Hercules as an MCE member community, which would be eligible for enrollment in 2025. So we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. All right, let's start in San Rafael first, since we started here in Concord. Are there any questions? Jessica, maybe you can help me. Are there any questions in San Rafael?
Yeah, Director Perry has a question.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a question. I can see the benefits to the customer base. Why did Hercules choose to go with us versus other CCAs? What are we offering to them that others aren't?
Yeah, that's a great question. At the time, communities in Contra Costa and Solano do have the opportunity to go with MCE or a different CCA if they would like to. However, because we already serve parts of those communities, there's a benefit to continuing with MCE service. I think that we all think MCE is a wonderful agency that offers a variety of great products, but apart from that, there's a benefit to having the same community choice provider as your neighbors, because your neighbor may say to you, I have MCE, and community choice itself is often, confusing for customers. So being able to have that messaging be consistent across the communities adds a lot of value on top of all of the customer programs and benefits and greenhouse gas reductions that MCE is offering. Sebastian, do you remember, did Hercules reach out to other CCAs?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jenna. So Hercules, when we were first approached in January, they actually initially reached out to EBCE, now Ava Energy, and they referred Hercules staff to MCE. So that's kind of how the connection came to be in the first place.
So that's often what happens, is that jurisdictions might reach out to Ava Community Energy, who is our closest neighbor, and then also Valley Clean Energy, who is our closest neighbor on the Solano side. And those CCAs often recommend, hey, you already have MCE in your county. They might be the best fit for you. So that does often happen as well.
Well, I would say because MCE is the best, but
I
any
would agree
addition?
as well.
Yeah, Chair, Director Thayer.
Is it also time for comments? Or just questions?
Yeah, it's questions and comments.
Okay, then I will follow up on what you just said. Who else would they choose? I mean, look at MCE, look at our staff, look at our organization. Gosh, how could they go anywhere else, right? I just wanted to say how excited I am. Today is a great day. I drove through rain and lightning to be able to vote on this, because this is the 16th city, right? 16th entity to join us right now, Hercules. And, since this organization started, look at how far we have come. And we are going to, by hopefully, my colleagues are going to add Hercules in. And we are going to not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but we're going to further fulfill our mission of who we are. So today's a great day. I'm glad I didn't get hit by lightning, and I'm happy to be with you all tonight.
Director Thayer, we're happy to have you here with us this evening.
Chair, Director Feynman has a comment.
Yes, thank you. I have a question just about the sensitivity analysis that shows the kind of range of like net operating margin and average margin and that kind of stuff. But the scenarios, and apologies if I missed this, but where it would be, kind of in the red versus positive, are those sensitivities that were applied specific to Hercules, or are they more like external kind of market forces that would be for any expansion that we were looking at this time?
Let me try and take that in two parts. I think first, maybe I didn't mention the numbers that we saw here were exclusively incremental impacts that would be associated with Hercules enrollment. And since there are no current contracts in place on behalf of Hercules, we're assuming open market conditions. Basically, what would it cost right now to buy all of the energy capacity and various products that are needed to serve the Hercules customers? What would it cost right now? And then what are the potential market movements that we could see over the next couple of years prior to actually serving those customers while we're out there trying to, lock in these contracts, trying to buy the energy? What are the potential market shifts we could see in that time frame? What's sort of that likely range? And I would say this is not, second part to that, this wouldn't be exclusive to just Hercules. It really doesn't have much to do with the geographic location or the customer makeup, more or less. This really is what California pricing looks like currently in the near term for resource adequacy and for renewable energy. We haven't experienced as much volatility on the just generic energy. It really is focused, these sensitivities, on the massive shifts that we've seen in the RA capacity market and renewable energy market, and trying to focus on what we could see both, additional price increases to current conditions, since this is really an unprecedented spike that we've never seen before over just the last 15 months. So who's to say it can't keep going up So the sensitivity doesn't just apply to prices coming off, but it also applies to potentially prices continuing to get worse over the next few months. So this shows sort of a good case and a worst case scenario as well of what it might be like by the time we start procuring energy on behalf of these customers.
Okay, thank you. But none of it's really about Hercules per se.
No, all of the power costs are assumed to be under the same procurement targets as the rest of the customer base as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Director Quinto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I definitely support this, and looking at the future of the city of Hercules, they are working on a multimodal transportation project with a new Amtrak station and a new ferry boat, along with the possibility of autonomous vehicles for the last miles home from that multimodal station. So looking at all that and hoping that the future transportation hub of Hercules will also incorporate what we do here with MCE. So definitely support that. And just some trivia here. And Hercules was actually a company town that made dynamite. So it is great to see the evolution of that city, which is one of the fastest growing cities in West County. So I truly believe that all residents, especially you're looking at the volatility of rates right now and what PG&E is trying to do. I see this as a win-win for the city of Hercules and for MCE. So I'm in full support of that, especially with new residents moving in, especially when they do have everything built. And this transportation hub was promised more than 20 years ago. And finally, with the new leadership we have in transportation in Contra Costa, and Mayor Alex Griffin, Alex Walker Griffin was able to meet with, he was at the White House with the president, and he delivered the funding for this. So exciting to see all these great things happening at Hercules. So I definitely fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments on this item?
Yes. So the revenue assumption is based on today's rates for the 3-year projection?
Correct. Yes.
No increases?
No increases. And that doesn't go to say, there aren't going to be increases or decreases down the road. This, is just where we're currently sitting, and we would, be more than happy to, adjust these projections come the next budget cycle and going forward to, reflect any changes that MC might have going forward.
Did you model anything at different rates?
We did not, no.
Well, and I assume we wouldn't stay here at these rates moving forward anyway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, let's see if there's any public comment on this item via Zoom.
There are none online and there are none here in San Rafael.
Do we have any members of the public watching via Zoom?
Yes, it looks like we have a couple.
All right. Well, it looks like we're ready to move this item, and I'm excited. And so I would like to make a motion. Approving Hercules as a new member of MCE. The resolution number is 2023-12. Do I have a second?
Second
from Mark.
Ooh, we have a lot of seconds. over
There
here.
was a second here in San Rafael as well. Dyer.
All right, so we only could prove 1 second. Who was first, Don? All right, it was Director Zorn as the second. So
I
a
will yield that
motion,
to
a motion made by
Martina.
myself, seconded by Director Dorn. I'll turn it over to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Belvedere, Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Absolutely.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Aye.
Fairfax, Fairfield, Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes. Yes.
Marin County, Martinez,
Aye.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Moraga,
Aye.
City of Napa,
Yes.
Napa County and 4 Napa cities,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pinole,
Pinola's yes.
thank you. Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
thank you. Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael, San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito, Solano County,
Yes.
Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo, Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Awesome. Yay. We are excited to have Hercules join our team, join our MCE family. And I know it has to go to the executive board next, but will that be next month?
Yeah, actually, yes, we do have to do the final approval of the implementation plan. We're still getting some data, some facts and figures into the tables. And yes, that will be going to the executive committee at the December meeting. And then we'll be able to submit it to the CPUC.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 8. This is a discussion item. Informational update on Community Power Coalition. MCE Senior Community Development Manager, Sebastian. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chair. Good evening, board members. My name is Sebastian Kahn. I'm our Senior Community Development Manager as part of our Public Affairs team here at MCE. It's been a little while since I presented to the board as well, but I've been at the agency for 4 years. And in my role, one of the real privileges that I get to do and work on each year is the Community Power Coalition. And for those of you that may not be as familiar, you can think of the Community Power Coalition kind of as our community stakeholder advisory group. And so I'm here today to speak a little bit about what we accomplished with the ComPow, as we call it, in 2023. Some of the key themes discussed, feedback that we heard from the community, and some of our identified priorities for 2024. And if we could move to the next slide, please. All right, so just a quick overview of the Community Power Coalition. And you'll have to excuse me because 2014 was a little bit before my time at MCE. So if the history lesson if I'm not giving it the justice that it deserves, there's that. But it was established in 2014, really because as MCE was expanding out of Marin County into Contra Costa County, obviously the city of Richmond was the first community that we enrolled. And prior to that enrollment, one of the efforts that we did was making sure that we met with environmental justice advocates and environmental justice organizations in Richmond to make sure that they were familiar with the community choice model and making sure that they knew who MCE was and just familiarizing ourselves in that community as a new energy provider. And today, almost 10 years later, the network of our Community Power Coalition has grown quite a bit. We now have just over 60 community-based organizations that are members of the ComPow. And really the intent of this organization is to meet with MCE staff on a quarterly basis to advise and provide feedback on programs and policy matters with the needs specifically of disadvantaged and underserved communities in mind. And for us at MCE, the compound serves as an educational forum for energy-related discussions. So we're able to meet with community stakeholders where they're at and talk about some of the key issues that we are grappling with as an agency and within the energy industry, largely speaking, and also to solicit feedback from those organizations about how they view MCE and how they view the role of community choice providers. So it really provides for a great kind of bi-directional feedback between staff and community partners. Next slide, please. All right, just some quick key data points from 2023. So we did hold 3 Community Power Coalition meetings this year. And of those 60 organizations that I mentioned on the previous slide, we were fortunate enough to have 50 unique organizations attend at least one of 3 of our Community Power Coalition meetings this year. And of those 50 organizations, over 50% are equity-focused organizations. And what we mean by that is community-based organizations or nonprofits that are primarily serving residents in disadvantaged communities, in addition to low-income communities, older adult populations, folks with disabilities or access and functional needs, and non-English speaking communities as well. So really making equity at the forefront of the compound is a priority of ours at MCE. And just in terms of the county breakdown where these organizations are located, we have about 31% of our compound organizations based in Contra Costa County, 34% based in Marin, 10% based in Napa County, 10% in Solano, and 15% are serving multiple counties, so not tied to a specific jurisdiction. We're always looking to add new members to the compound as well and invite new community organizations to join us. So if you all have any recommendations, Jenna and I would be happy to connect offline and discuss that a little bit in more detail with you. So next slide, please. All right, and I don't know what you all call this, but I tend to call these types of slides a NASCAR slide with all the different logos. So just wanted to better illustrate some of the organizations that were represented at the compound this year. Hopefully some of them you identify from your communities. And as I mentioned, if there are new organizations that you think might benefit from connecting with MCE, we're certainly welcome to those suggestions. Next slide, please. Okay, so 2023 themes, these were the topics of meetings that we held in this calendar year. And the way that a Community Power Coalition meeting typically works is that over the course of an hour and a half or so, we will have an educational component of the program where we speak to community members about a key issue within the energy industry. And then we follow that educational forum with a breakout session. So we're actually meeting as staff in small groups with our community members to further dive into those topics and see what themes are resonating with them, what messaging is working, and what are potential partnership opportunities between MCE and their respective organizations. So in 2023, there were 3 distinct themes that we worked on for each Community Power Coalition meeting. The first of which was community engagement impact and coalition participation. And kind of how we broke that meeting down was we invited a guest speaker from the East Contra Costa Community Alliance, who some of you may be familiar with. We actually met that organization because they were hosting a series of listening sessions in Bay Point with community members, trying to better understand how folks in Bay Point and Pittsburgh felt about climate change, generally speaking, and we were fortunate enough to participate in those workshops. So we used that experience as a way to talk to other potential compound members about how MCE and community orgs can partner together. So that was a really great session. In June of 2023, I know some of you may be familiar with the recent decision by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District to phase out gas appliances. So our guest speaker at that meeting was actually from the Air District, and they spoke to community members about those changes, and we were able to have a really holistic dialogue about what that meant for our communities as well. And then our most recent Community Power Coalition meeting was just a couple weeks back in October. And this was actually the first Community Power Coalition meeting that we had done in several years at MCE, and really in person, excuse me if I didn't say that, but yeah, our first in-person meeting in several years, which was a real accomplishment and just so great to be able to connect with community members face to face And at that meeting, we talked about the electric grid, what that means exactly, reliability, and what it means to be resilient in your community. So next slide. All right. And some key feedback that we heard kind of consistently throughout those 3 meetings was that we should continue to build awareness and trust in the community. And the tactics by which community members suggested that MCE do that was really broken down into 3 distinct bullets. The first of which was using inclusive language when we're meeting with community partners and really emphasizing that that should be something that MCE continues to do moving forward, right? So at our compound meetings, we're making sure that we're not using energy jargon. We're not using acronyms. We're fully describing what things actually mean. And that's something that we do throughout our marketing and communication practices at MCE as well, but crucially important to do that with community partners. The next piece was capacity building, right? Really giving these community leaders that are showing up and giving time out of their day to meet with MCE staff, the tools and resources that they need to be able to speak about MCE in the community. So we heard throughout our 3 sessions that there's an appetite to continue to do presentations and community trainings with community leaders. And that's something we're very much committed to doing at MCE, and plan to do that with our compound members moving forward in the new year. Last but not least, and this may seem like a really basic one, but it's so crucially important, is making sure that the leadership of the organizations that are represented at Compow know and have a baseline understanding of what it means to read and understand a utility bill, understanding the opt-out model of CCAs, and understanding the health and environmental benefits of community choice, so that when they get questions from their constituents and their stakeholders, they're able to address those and act as that trusted partner in the community on behalf of MCE. Next slide, please. All right, and so looking ahead to 2024, as mentioned, we did hold that first in-person community meeting in quite some time, and we want to continue to do that in the new year. So that's something we're committed to doing, is increasing the number of in-person meetings. We want to continue to ensure that the Compow has a diversity of organizations represented, and we're always looking to expand and add new organizations that would benefit from these types of conversations. And again, would welcome any suggestions. And last but not least, we want to continue to solicit potential topics and breakout themes in partnership with Compow members. It's very easy for us doing the day-to-day work at MCE to think of, a theme that might resonate with community partners, but unless we're sharing that and having that dialogue, it may not be the best fit, right? So we want to make sure that Community Power Coalition members are able to share feedback with us and suggest potential themes. And I believe that concludes the presentation for this evening. Yeah, so thank you so much, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sebastian. Are there any questions or comments? Director Nakamura?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I think I have a strong understanding of what the Compow does. One of your organizations that I haven't seen on your NASCAR slide is Save Mount Diablo, but I know that MCE was at their recent Planet for the Party in Lafayette. So I would imagine that they're a good partner that you've already connected with and they're on your radar. The other one that I'm thinking about is Friends of Concord Creeks, and the urban, like the Walnut Creek Watershed District. So those are some that came to mind for me, and I can connect you to some people at both of those organizations.
Appreciate that, Director Nakamura. And as a Concord resident myself, I really appreciate just understanding what the Concord-based orgs are. So thank you.
Great.
Do we have any questions or comments from San Rafael or anyone over Zoom?
None here in San Rafael, Chair.
All right.
It doesn't look like there's any online. Thank you.
All right. Well, we will move on to the next item. Thank you again, Sebastian. Item number 9 is also a discussion item. An update on customer savings and discount programs. MC's Director of Customer Operations, Zay, will lead this discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, board members. My name is Zay Perrin. I'm the Director of Customer Operations, and it's my privilege to talk about all of the discount programs and funding options that we help to support our MCE customers with. Go ahead and start with the slides. So here we have, thank you, perfect. So in this presentation, we're going to go over, I'm going to give an overview of the 10 different programs that help to support the outcome of over $54 million in savings for our customers since the COVID outbreak in 2020. And this is in addition to the $44 million of comparative savings to PG&E that MCE has produced since we started in 2010. Next slide, please. So as we go through, I'm going to give an overview of each of the programs and their impact for our community members. The first one is our California Alternative Rates for Energy, otherwise known as CARE. And this program provides a 20% discount for income qualified customers. And the eligibility is based on the household size and income. Customers may also qualify for CARE if they participate in various programs such as CalFresh or SNAP. The impact that we've provided over the last year is just over $9.5 million in savings for just over 104,000 CARE customers. And the important aspect about CARE is that it's based on income per household, but not based on past income. So if a customer ends up in having job loss or reduction in income, they are at the time that they submit for application, that's when their income is analyzed and utilized. Next slide. Our next program is the Family Energy Rate Assistance Program, otherwise known as FARA. It provides a monthly discount of 18% on electricity costs for families that are 3 or more. And this is for customers that are just above the CARE allowance. So if a customer, it falls under CARE, then they would stay under CARE. If their salary range or their income range is a little bit higher, then they're eligible for the 18% discount through FARA. And we've provided just under $1 million in savings for for nearly 3,600 FARA customers in MCE's territories. Next slide. Next, we have our Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff, otherwise known as the MCE Green Access. This is a CPUC state-funded 100% renewable energy discount. So the customers that are in the program receive a 20% discount on our light green product, and they receive 100% renewable energy. This program focuses on our customers that are in disadvantaged communities that have the highest pollution burden by way of the Cal-Enviro screen. And currently those communities are Pittsburgh, Richmond, and Vallejo, and also a portion of San Pablo. That program has provided just over $1.6 million in savings for just under 3,200 customers since we launched it in 2021. Next slide. Next, we have the medical baseline allowance. Medical baseline allowance is for customers under a tiered rate. It provides them with an additional 500 kilowatts of energy at that base rate, so the lowest rate. And it is there for customers and households that need additional assistance for medical needs, whether it's refrigeration for medications, being able to plug in wheelchairs, use of CPAP machines, and the like. On top of that, Medical Baseline also provides additional outreach and support for any PSPS events. So in 2020, we were able to provide 199 Yeti 3000 batteries. As you can see here in the picture, we have our own Alexandra McGee and Justine Parmalee unloading batteries that came in, and our community partners helped us deliver those, and that was the Marin Center for Independent Living, the Independent Living Resources for Solano and Contra Costa, and the Disability Services and Legal Center from Napa. So they helped us deliver those to those customers that were most impacted by the wildfires and the PSPS events at that time. Next slide. Next, we have the Arrearage Management Plan. This is a state-funded payment plan that provides up to $8,000 of debt forgiveness for customers that are eligible. Customers need to be enrolled in Carefera, owe at least $500 for gas and electricity, or $250 for gas. They need to be over 90 days past due and have been with PG&E for at least 6 months. And they had to have at least made one payment in that time period. So far, since its launch in January of 21, MC has secured $7 million in debt forgiveness for over 16,000 residents, customers. Within this plan, customers need to make 12 payments over a 14-month period. So they're able to miss not more than one payment in consecutive basis, no more than 2 over that time period. Each payment that they make for each month results in 1/12 of their debt being forgiven. And the goal, of course, is that they make all 12 payments and that all of the debt is forgiven up to that $8,000 mark. Next slide. Next, we have our percentage of income payment program. This is our newest program, and it is a CPUC funded pilot that is administered by PG&E in partnership with MCE. The pilot provides eligible customers with a fixed maximum monthly payment amount based on their household income. The eligibility focuses on areas with the highest rate of disconnections and customers who have been disconnected 2 or more times before the COVID outbreak period. So you can see here on the slide, the lowest amount that a customer would qualify for is a grand total of $37 per month. That's a guaranteed maximum payment. The second level is at $115 per month for both electric and gas. We have 411 customers that are signed up so far. We have a maximum capacity of 518, and we expect to reach that by January. Those that have already enrolled have already saved $33,000. And the important item that I want to notate here is when we were first talking about this project over a year ago with the CPUC and with PG&E, the expectation was that somewhere around 25 to 30% of customers that applied for this program would be eligible for the lowest rate. So far, with those that we have enrolled, the percentage is at 60%. So it's twice that of expectation, which really speaks to what the need is, especially when we look at what these annual income levels are. So to give you an idea, a single person would have to make less than $13,590 annually to be on the lowest rate. A family of 3, $23,030 household annual income. A family of 5, $32,470. So the impact is huge, and we're very proud to be a part of this program. Next slide. Next, we have the California Arrearage Payment Plan. This was a state-funded financial assistance program that was meant to help reduce the impacts of COVID. We were able to secure just over $10 million in debt forgiveness for over 51,777 customers. The $10 million that we were able to secure for residential customers took care of 100% of the COVID arrearage debt for that time period. So very happy with that outcome as well. And that that program just closed with the final payment of Cap 2 this last February. Next slide. Next, we have our MCE CARES credit. So in response to growing concerns surrounding PG&E rate increases and an end to the state's disconnection moratorium, MCE CARES credit was launched to help support vulnerable and small business customers. Program provided just over $5.8 million of savings to over 34,000 customers by way of a $10 per month credit for FARA households and a 20% discount for our small business customers. Slide. Next slide. Thank you. Next, we have our Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, otherwise known as LIHEAP. This is a federally funded program overseen by the California Department of Community Services and Development that offers a one-time financial assistance to low-income households to pay their energy bills and is distributed and managed at the county level. Since it's run by the county level, we don't have the financial impacts to share with you today. But it is one of the items that we share along with our bill savings outreach. And it especially comes into play when we have customers that want to get onto the AMP program or need to get onto the AMP program, but they also need to make sure that they're set up for success. So a program like LIHEAP allows them to make that initial payment so that they can continue to make payments and not fall out. Next slide. Next, we have the Relief for Energy Assistance through Community Help, otherwise known as REACH. This program is run by a nonprofit organization, Dollar Energy Fund. It provides a one-time energy credit for up to $500. And the assistance program is for customers that are experiencing a severe or temporary financial hardship and have received either a 15-day or 48-hour disconnection notice. So this is primarily to provide outreach and help folks from their energy being cut off. Next slide. So I've given you an overview of 10 different programs. So what does that all mean? What impact have we had other than those dollars, and how do we do it? And we do it through customer education. Our customer programs, public affairs, and customer operations teams have made a coordinated effort to further MCE's priority of creating energy equity and building equitable communities by way of programs, communications, community engagement, inclusive marketing, much like what you saw in Sebastian's presentation when we were talking about compound. So in 2023, these efforts produced 17 educational ads and web pages that were primarily in Spanish and Chinese that provided understanding your bill information, just like what Sebastian had commented on. The information that we received from the community, we turned right around and we utilized it in what we were doing, as well as bill savings and program information. Following that, we provided an English-Spanish bilingual educational outreach campaign that started just in July, specifically around arrearage management plan. And that is a bus ad, as well as direct mail and email. From the launch, we received 772 new signups for the AMP program. That includes customers that were not care customers before the outreach. So it's a win-win for both of those. In addition, our community engagement team has participated in over 250 community events and presentations, inclusive of the meetings that we just heard about for Compound. And our public affairs team has generated nearly 4 million social media impressions just in this year. And what does that mean? Well, it means that the team that I get to oversee and that I'm so proud of has received 32% call volume increase this year. And the key impact that I see and what I'm most proud of in all of this engagement and all of this teamwork is that our our response and outreach that we receive for Spanish calls has moved from 2.37% last year to just over 31% for this year. And so I guess you could say the proof is in the pudding. And we're doing a lot of help, we're doing a lot of work, and we're very happy and proud to continue to do so for the rest of this year and in the coming years. And through part of that, my team has been able to retain, for the first time, 1,000 customers so far this year, and we look forward to increasing that as every day goes by. And that's it. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Zay, for that presentation. It looks like we're killing it on social media right now. So thank you for giving the update on social media, but also the outreach. I think it's wonderful that we have been to over 200 outreach events and just getting out to those communities, especially the marginalized areas, and just providing that education and background to the people in those communities as well. We'll start here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Director Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to commend MCE for all these different programs. It's not unusual. We hear about rates and rate increases and things like that from customers, but some of the customers are proportionally impacted more than others. So I think the savings that are demonstrated here are significant, and I just want to, we talked about it at the retreat a little bit, some of these programs, and I just appreciate the additional information and commend MCE, and thanks for getting the word out to everybody about these programs.
Through the chair. So I'm just going to introduce myself, my first time here. Monica Brown, Board of Soups, District 2, and I'm also the chair of the Area Agency on Aging with Napa Solano. So a couple things. We do newsletters that go out to our seniors, and Solano County has over 100,000. If there's a way, I know I'm on somebody's mailing list because I know Sebastian sends me stuff, but if you can send that, because we do quarterly with our Area Agency on Aging, and personally, I do a weekly one. And part of Vallejo is my district too. So, but where I'm going with it is that the CDA, California Department of Aging, is giving us computers because we have found during the pandemic that so many of our seniors were isolated, and we're training them on how to use computers. So when I don't see a phone number, I worry about that, because when the gas rates were so high last January, we had money that we had set aside under the rescue plan money to help our seniors with the one time. And we had to do it quickly, which I know you guys all know this, but where I'm going with it is that I also need a phone number. If you can send me when you do these kinds of things, so that it's informed that I can send out, because just because I do 33,000 people weekly, it doesn't need that it just stays here. It goes out. Trust me. During the pandemic, we were getting calls in other counties because people were sharing the newsletter. How do I get those shots? So I know Carrie will say, Monica, stop talking now, but it's very important because the need is great out there, guys. We know the food bank, we know everything going on. We know even our students. I'm a retired teacher of 39 years. It's bad out there. And at least in Solano County, 1 out of 3 receive services from us. So any kind of extra money coming in is wonderful. This is great. No, I didn't read everything because John just said, can you, cover for me today? And I ran into Carrie, who said, I'll drive you. Okay, that worked all good. Yeah, you owe Carrie something better than just this thing that looks like wine, right? But so it went over there. So I love this. I love all of this. And I just want to do kudos to Sebastian. Sebastian is probably one of your best out in the community promoting MCE. He's superb. Whatever pay raises he needs, you give it to him, keep him going. I love it. his hair's a little different since the last time I saw him, but you know, we still love you anyway, Sebastian. But when you are sending this stuff out, again, I need phone numbers. I know, guys, I mean, I've got a lot of seniors. I need that. We're like everybody else, working on broadband to make sure that everybody has equal access to everything. We just need to keep working together. So I just wanted to throw that out. Most of you already know it, but you hadn't met me yet. So, hey, life is good.
You know
Good or bad. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And along with the website and direct information, anyone can always call our 1-800 number. The team that was pictured at the very beginning of the presentation is there to answer questions. And the instance that you're talking about is a scenario that we hear and see every day, where we have a customer that calls in and says, I'm on a fixed income, this bill is too high, what can you do? And we're there to help and support. So thank you.
But if I may, anything that you send out does need to have not only the website, but also a phone number every single time, so that I don't have to play mother and daddy to all of my constituents and help them find it. I'm just saying, guys, I'm down a staffer. So, and it's not going to get any better the next couple months with what's happening in the world. So thank you.
Yes, understood. And it is a minimum standard for us to have both website, email, and phone number at all times.
Director Kilman in San Rafael.
Great, thank you. Hard to follow that one. But I'll try. It's four questions, but I hope it's not too onerous. The first is, I saw you mentioned Pittsburgh and parts of Richmond for under-resourced communities. Is Marin City covered by this program?
So and you're speaking directly for the Green Access Program,
Yes.
Disadvantaged communities. There is not a portion of Marin City that is in the top 5% of the Cal-Enviro screen. So at this time, no. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk offline about it. Okay. Second question is, every slide had customer acquisition, but can you tell us about the total addressable market for these programs in aggregate?
So we don't know 100% because we don't believe, and we know that not all of the customers within our territories are within these programs. So part of our outreach is to ensure that everyone that is eligible for care, everyone that is eligible for FARE, everyone's eligible for any of these programs is on those programs. So it's hard for us to say for income-based programs what our total actually is. We know that it's more than what we have, and that's why we've continued these educational outreach programs so that more customers know about it. And one of the key elements does come from our last question and statement, because there are a lot of aged customers or aging customers that don't realize that because they have gone into retirement and their income has changed, that they're now eligible for these programs.
And I just want to make sure it's very, very clear, Director Kalman, that many of those customers that are eligible, that includes customers in Marin City. There are just a couple of programs of the long list that they just went through that are limited to zip code and the Cal-Enviro screen, but many of the other programs that we offer and that he talked about are for anyone, including lots of folks in Marin City.
I also think it would be helpful, and I know it's hard to know exactly what your TAM is, but for us as a board to be able to allocate sufficient resources to support your amazing programs and efforts, I think we do need to get a handle on the total opportunity and across various demographics, whether we're using census data or data around aging. Which leads me to my third of four questions, which is, which education effort has the highest conversion rate? So on your slide, you only showed us conversion on one. I think it was the bus. Said you acquired 772 customers, but I don't know how successful the other ones were.
So we don't have success rates other than the ones where we've had the direct campaign like that one. can say that we have increased our overall care population, and we've maintained our AMP population with one of the lowest recidivism rates. So the customers that we get into the program, we keep into the program. It's especially important with the AMP program. So we've been able to retain over 78% of the customers that come into it, which I'm told is one of the highest for that program.
So that's interesting, right? Because you're asking us to view the program through the lens of retention, but I also want to view it through the lens of acquisition and service. So I think maybe as we develop and support your efforts more, if we can flesh that out, I think it'll be helpful. Because my last question is, what's the biggest obstacle to conversion and sign up? So you have 250 community events. Are you getting any signups at these events? Are you getting 2? Are you getting how many people are coming? How do we judge those? 'Cause that's a lot of effort to go out and be in the community 250 times.
Yeah, so I think that the direct impact is what we've seen in our growth in our call volume. Last year, we didn't control our call center. We had a third party that was running it. And on top of that, it was an enrollment year. So if we were to take apples to apples, year over year on regular forecasted calls, we've received 88% more call volume this year than a standard forecasted year. So that's where I see the impact. And then also the amount of change in our Spanish call volume really speaks to what we've been able to do in the bilingual portion, as well as the integrated outreach in all the communities directly.
If I could introduce myself, I'm JB Ackman. I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs, and my team does much of the community engagement, marketing, and communications on behalf of MCE. Just to give a little more context to some of the numbers that Zay shared with you in his presentation, those 250 outreach opportunities are outreaches where we're out in the community presenting across a broad variety of topics related to MCE. Care FARA programs and arrearage programs are among the many pieces of information we bring with us and are prepared to talk with the community about in those public outreach opportunities, but they're not always the sole focus. Sometimes we're there talking about electrification, and we also have Care FARA information with us. Sometimes we're there to talk about other kinds of community programs and services that we provide. So what he was giving you was sort of a broad context to all of the things that we do that are touch points both for the Care FARA program and for MCE generally in the community. To your question, which is a really good one about conversion, that's something that I think we can spend a little more time considering in our marketing context. I think one of the ways that we could measure that more quantifiably going forward would be to have some kind of a feedback mechanism for those customers when they do call in to get a little bit more information about where they may have learned about MCE's Care FARA services and what prompted them to call. So I really appreciate that comment.
All right. Director Toms and San Rafael.
Yes, thank you for the report. Just a question regarding the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff 20% discount program. Is that automatic, or does a customer have to request it?
That is automatic.
It is automatic, and you go by census tract and not necessarily zip code?
Correct. It's based off of census tract and based first off of the top 5% from the Cal Enviro screen. And then it goes from there. Right.
Thank you. That's going to be beyond just Pittsburgh, Richmond, and part of San Pablo. There's a lot of areas, especially in, in Contra Costa County, that meet that criteria. So thank you.
Certainly. And I will add that we're going based off of both Cal Enviro Screen 3.0 and 4.0.
Chair Director Thayer has her hand raised. And
Thank you.
Feynman.
Thank you. I wanted to take a minute to thank Zay for his report.
And I'm wondering why he doesn't come here more often with news like this, I mean, how do you do $54 million in discounts and funding? And the campaigns that you talked about and the work that you're doing in the communities, especially the Spanish community, the Chinese community. I think you said that enrollment went from, did you say 2.3%, 31%?
So Spanish phone call engagement went from 2% phone calls were Spanish language to just over 31%.
Right. And so if you run a call center, you know that is astronomical in increase, because what that means is that all of the outreach that is targeting the community is working. And it means that the outreach is not only working, but it's respectful and it's understandable to the community. So I really want to commend you on that and on this program. And I think our customer operations is doing really, really well. So thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Thayer. Director Feynman in San Rafael.
Yes, thank you so much. Great report, as everyone has said. I just had a quick question about the medical baseline program. Is eligibility for that, obviously you need a medical condition that qualifies, but is there any sort of means tested element to it as well in terms of income level or Kaplan-Meier screen, or it's just open to everyone?
No, it's based solely on medical need.
Okay, great. And then is the battery program still running, or?
That battery program was specific for that need.
Okay.
At that time.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Are there any additional questions or comments on this item?
Could I just add that on the medical baseline program, that also requires a verification by a doctor, and there's a process to do it, but that's all part of the application process.
That is correct.
Director Perret has a question.
Yeah, great report. Zay, just a question on LIHEAP. I worked at Community Action Marin in 2017-18, and they were running LIHEAP at the time. Not sure if they still are. Would we ever consider applying to run LIHEAP and some of the other programs that we're not currently in charge of, just to kind of create consistency for customers?
That's a great question. I haven't considered it yet. I don't think we've considered it yet. We could certainly look into it. We do a lot of partnership with the counties as they run it. And we do a lot of co-advertising and drive for it. So not yet, but
just also say that that's a statewide run program. And so it would be, I think, a unique venture for us to try and take a chunk of that out from a statewide program with one entity and just pull a portion out for our service area.
not to mention it would be somewhat difficult for the counties that we don't have 100% penetration yet.
I do think it'd be good to look into that. For LIHEAP specifically, it's a federal program, right? And it's run by different entities in each of the counties. And I'm not sure if it comes up for renewal in all the counties at the same time. But if it was, right, we could potentially go and do it for the entire service area at one moment. I understand if it was kind of bifurcated, to be a little bit strange to have it for Marin and not for Contra Costa, or vice versa, or just Napa County. But if it did come up at the same time, that could be something that would be good.
Jessica, do we happen to have any public comment via Zoom?
No raised hands, Chair.
Any further discussion on this item? All right, seeing no raised hands, we will move on to our last item for this evening. Item number 10, resolution number 2023-13, establishing date, time, and location of regular board meetings. This item will be presented by MC's General Counsel, Catalina.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for sticking around here at the end. I wanted to flag that, MCE's Joint Powers Agreement and the Brown Act both require us to set the date, time, and location via a resolution. The last time that MCE did this was in 2015, which is our current schedule of having our board meetings on the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. We've gotten some feedback that that's kind of a late start, especially when meetings tend to go late into the evening. So what you all have before you is a proposed resolution to continue the meetings on the third Thursday of the month, but have the start time at 6 p.m. And that would be continue to be held in both of MCE offices or any other location that's designated on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Catalina. Are there any questions or comments from directors here in Concord? Seeing none in San Rafael. Jessica, anyone with their light on?
Yes, there's multiple. Director
Okay.
Prey.
Yeah, I'm happy with this time personally, but I do think 6 does mean there's commute traffic. So unlike all of us who are going to our city halls for city council meetings, and we've all kind of moved our meetings up in Mill Valley, we now meet at 5:30. A few years ago it was 7. We've moved it up a half hour every single year. And now we're at 5:30. Who knows if we go to 5 next year, but maybe we will, right? I do think the commute times though is tricky with this board since it is very large. And tonight we added Hercules, they'll join in a year and a bit, right? So as we get larger, right, those are more commute times for board members and staff. So I'm not sure if other folks, that poses a problem. Fine for me, but wanted to bring that up.
Director Feynman.
I am a little bit concerned about the earlier start time. There's at least a couple of us on the board here that have Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Board of Directors meeting right immediately before this. And, today we didn't even adjourn until past 5:30. And I just think there's a high likelihood that I and possibly others will be late for either that reason or for work and commute other reasons. So, I mean, if there's enough of a quorum to start at 6, then I'm happy to just join in late, but it's definitely a lot tighter.
Jessica, do you happen to have any additional questions or comments in San Rafael? Seeing none here in Concord.
Yes, Director Kelman.
I feel like I should put a plug in for earlier time. Our council tends to be way more effective the earlier we begin. We seem to be quite effective here. Nonetheless, I think an earlier time gives some flexibility to really take our time on important topics and not feel like we're hit up against a late hour. And sorry, Alexis, I didn't realize you guys had something immediately before, so I want to be mindful of that, however.
Director Birdseye.
Could we amend the resolution to start at 6:30?
Absolutely, if that's the direction that the board would like to go.
Would you like me to make a motion?
We have an additional comment here in San Rafael.
Director Thayer.
Yeah, I would actually argue against that. I think that we should try for 6 and see how that works with some of our fellow directors that are coming from the other meeting. I will say, when you have kids, it's very hard the later at night that a meeting goes. And I would be in favor of the meeting starting at 6 and we try it out. And then we go to 6:30 if some of our directors, like Director Feynman, cannot make it. So I will actually move the motion that is on the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion off the table now by Director Birdseye.
I'd like to keep the motion on the table, please.
I would second that motion.
All right. So how would you like to?
So it sounds like we have two motions.
Yeah.
Both have
Mhm.
been seconded. We have a motion for a meeting start at 6 p.m. and we have a motion for a meeting start at 6:30. I think either way, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads, and I don't think it's a huge difference one way or the other. But it's great that we can kind of get a feel for what works best for folks. So I think we could do a roll call on each of the two motions and see where the majority lands. If that sounds
All
good to
right,
you, Chair.
sounds good. So we'll go with the,
Chair,
I
we
just
have
have a
an additional comment
question.
here in Santa
okay,
Fe.
When will
thank
the new
you.
time, when will the new time take place? Beginning of the year, December?
It is, the resolution states that it would be on a going forward basis, starting with the very next meeting. It is likely that we will not hold a meeting in December, although we may. But whatever we decide on tonight would come into play whenever that next board meeting is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Director Zorn?
Thank you. For the purposes of reaching a quorum, what I didn't realize how many people had started meeting kind of like at remote locations. So do we still need to meet a quorum of in-person people in order for people to say they're going to be elsewhere, right? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that's still the case. So for those folks that might have a known potential conflict, they could potentially say that they're coming in from somewhere else. I just wasn't sure if that's what you're supporting or you'd
I
advise
believe that is
against.
the case, but I'd like to ask our general counsel to confirm that. Did you hear that question, Catalina?
I did. I want to make sure I understood it correctly. So I will just kind of state what we are allowed to do, which is we can participate from any of the locations that we put on our agenda, and those locations just have to be within our jurisdiction. We have to have a quorum within our jurisdiction. So our quorum right now is 19. So as long as 19 members are showing up at both of the MCE offices or somewhere else that has been noticed on the agenda that is within our jurisdiction, that satisfies our quorum needs. And then other locations can be noticed. So technically you all could show up from your own city halls or city council things as long as we noticed them on the agenda.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So I just want to make sure because I missed a meeting like 6 months ago because I thought we all had to be here in person and I was going to be out of town, so I couldn't make it. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page that we're, old school Brown Act rules apply and we can tell you before the agenda gets released that we can be and we count towards the quorum. Okay. And then thank you for clarifying. And then just for the purposes of voting, can we vote yes to both? We can, right? As far as,
Well, then we might have to do a recount, right?
well,
If you vote yes to both.
yeah. Okay. Just making sure that, yeah.
If I might, we have a motion and a substitute motion. The substitute motion should be voted on first, and that would be the 6:30.
It wasn't a substitute motion. It was just an additional motion. So the first motion would be voted on first.
Well, it can't, you can't have an additional, if there's another motion, it's the second motion. There's no such thing as there's no such thing as an additional motion.
So sorry, it's just Rosenberg's rules. You can have up to 3 open motions, but you vote on whichever one was most recently introduced first. So in this case, the second motion gets voted on first.
Chair, I believe there was an additional comment, Director Hillis.
Yeah, thank you. I just had mixed feelings on either time. I have little kids and also a job, so getting from from a location to Concord during rush hour is a little bit difficult. I also, the conflict is the lateness of the hour, given getting up 5 o'clock in the morning to make breakfast for everyone. Adds to the other side. So I think that I can see myself supporting either way. It just would mean that if we went with the earlier time, I'd be more likely to be showing up to the meetings the way I am tonight.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item before we vote on the first motion, which is really the second motion from Director Birdseye presented, which is 6:30. All right. So Director Birdseye had that motion, and I can't remember who seconded that motion. Was it
I did that.
Director Nakamura second the motion? So we will vote on this one first, and then we'll vote on the first motion, which is the 6 p.m. So right now we're voting on the 6:30. Turning it over to you, Madam Clerk.
Oh, thank you so much. Belvedere. Benicia.
Yes.
Concord.
Yes.
Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
No.
Danville.
Yes.
El Cerrito. El Cerrito. Fairfax. Fairfield. Lafayette.
Yes.
Larkspur.
No.
County of Marin. Martinez.
Yes.
Mill Valley.
Yes.
Moraga.
Aye.
City of Napa.
No.
Napa County and 4 Napa cities.
No.
Novato.
Yes.
Oakley.
Yes.
Pinole.
No.
Pittsburgh.
No.
Pleasant Hill.
Yes.
Richmond.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
San Anselmo.
Yes.
San Pablo.
Yes.
San Rafael. San Ramon.
No.
Sausalito.
No.
Solano County.
Yes.
Tiburon.
No.
Vallejo. Walnut Creek.
No.
All right. So now we'll vote on the motion to start the meetings at 6 p.m. And I will.
Excuse me, point of
Yes.
order. What rules are we following? I'm not, I don't quite understand the voting process here.
I'll turn it over to General Counsel.
Thank you. This one's a new one for me. I think that we are following, as Director Feynman pointed out, the Rosenberg's Rules of Order. And we have these 3, or excuse me, we can have up to 3 motions on the table. We've got 2. And we've presented 1 motion. I think we probably should get a tally from our clerks to make sure that if we have a majority in favor of this motion, the second motion, which is the 6 o'clock motion, would not be necessary to continue to vote.
The tally for the 6:30 hour. 10 noes, 15 yeses.
I have the same vote.
Madam Clerk, may I clarify the noes? Because I do believe I want to make sure that the County of Napa vote was recognized.
Yes, correction. $14 noes. I'm sorry. 15 noes. 15 yeses.
Oh. All right.
Madam Clerk and Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, Madam Clerk, we're getting a slightly different count over here. We have a 14 no and a 15 yes. I just would like to make sure before we continue on, we've just counted everything.
Fourteen no's.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Could you repeat what we have for yeses and what we have for nos?
Fifteen yeses.
All right. So the motion, the motion passes with the start time being at 6:30 p.m. on the third Thursday of every month. All right. So we are now moving on. That was our last agenda item for this evening. We're moving on to item number 11. Are there any board matters or staff matters that need to be discussed or you'd like to discuss?
I've got an
Director.
announcement.
An announcement? Yes.
I just want to announce that MCE was nominated for Company of the Year designation, and the president CEO of the San Ramon Chamber of Commerce, Heidi Kenston Lee, announced MCE was the winner of the Company of the Year, and they will. This is recognized by the San Ramon Chamber of Commerce, and this is formerly the Business and Community Awards ceremony. This will be taking place on December 6th at the Bridges Golf Course in San Ramon. So congratulations to MCE as a company.
Congratulations. All right. Any additional, sorry, that's my son.
Sure.
Any additional matters that needs to be discussed?
Chair, I
Yes,
did have one item.
Director Hillis.
Yeah, thank you. So I this last Sunday had the honor and privilege of accepting the game ball at the St. Mary's homecoming game on behalf of MCE. I just wanted to thank Sebastian Kahn and Spike Lomibao, who helped to organize it and got me all together and ensured that my three little kids and wife could see me go out to center court. So thank you for the opportunity.
Jessica, any lights on in San Rafael from directors?
There are no additional hands.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We will adjourn the meeting this evening, time 9:39 p.m. Thank you all again. Have a great evening.